皆さん、こんにちは。今日は日本のホラー映画を話します。この映画はリネというです。じゃあ、始めましょう。
Well, there's Kaylee's intro for our Japanese-a-thon that we've been on. This is the first time that she's ever spoken Japanese on the channel, I think, right?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think so.
Yeah.
I'm embarrassed.
I don't know why she's embarrassed.
I don't know.
But in true Japanese fashion, you're like very shy and like yeah, so for those of you who don't know, Kaylee's been studying Japanese for on and off, more off than on,
Lately,
unfortunately.
but well, recently more off, but now more on.
Yeah.
Again.
Yeah.
So, yes.
Which is good. So, any of our Japanese speaking viewers, please tell her how she did. I think she speaks it very well. I've seen you comment those like on that like group thing you had where people are like, "Oh, very good pronunciation," and like you going back and forth and stuff. So you get way too in your head about it.
Yeah.
Why don't you tell everyone what you said at least?
I just said hello, everyone. Today we're going to talk about a Japanese horror movies. The movie is Reincarnation.
Yeah.
Let's begin. At least I think that I don't know. So on IMDb there's like original title Dine, but then the English title is Reincarnation, and I don't really know what the Japanese title translates to because it's like in.
You looked it up and
it's not in like kanji. It's in like romanji, which is just like the using like English characters to spell out like a Japanese word.
Yeah.
So, and from what I could find in my quick search, it wasn't coming up as anything.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it means reincarnation or if it means something else. But
yeah.
Anyway, it's Reincarnation.
Yes.
We watched this several days ago now. We were really excited to talk about it after we watched it, and then because of me, we put it off a few more days past when we really wanted to discuss it. So we're going to review it now.
Yeah, so this is an 8 films to die for After Dark Horror Fest. I think this is from year 1. Now, I have seen every one of these movies from all 4 of the original years and the originals. I do think that there might be a couple originals I didn't see after the fact, 1 or 2. I don't think I ever saw like Red Clover, which has like Billy Zane or something. Like there's like a couple that got past me, but I definitely saw all of the original 8 films to die for from the original 4 years, plus the extra films that didn't make it but like still somehow got the label, like Captivity and such. Frontiers is probably the most popular one that got cut from the lineup, but people still consider it part of the After Dark Horror Fest. This weirdly is not one that I remember watching, but I do remember the poster for it because when you showed me this was on a list, I was like, oh, I recognize that cover. That's part of my After Dark Horror Fest movies, but I didn't remember watching this. And, you know, I had stated for years now, and I definitely would like to issue a retraction on this, which is great. I'm very excited about this. I hope this happens one day with like Universal monster movies. But I'd always stated that, you know, one of my least favorite subgenres of horror was J-horror. I was never a fan of it. I didn't like, you know, The Ring and The Grudge and all that kind of stuff. I was just never really into it because I found it to be very repetitive, which of course is ironic and kind of hypocritical coming from a slasher fan. But much like anything we don't like rap music or country music or whatever the hell it is that you don't like, when you don't like something, it all feels the same to you.
Yeah.
Right? That's how you lump it into a category, is because it fits the framework of a certain specific type of sound or story or whatever, style, what have you. And when you're not into that, you miss the nuance, you miss what makes it different. And J-horror did get that kind of category lumping for me, where they all were either a young boy with like dark eyes who croaked, or a girl with black long hair that's in her face that croaked. Right? It's
A lot of
always
croaking. Yeah.
and then like slow pan-ins, or like, you know, quick shots of like a disturbing image for a half a second out of nowhere, but you get the reaction from the characters first before they see it, before we see it. So like that's something that they do in J-horror that I find fascinating, is that typically we get the jump scare,
Right.
and then we get them reacting to it, or all in one shot.
Yeah.
But with J-horror, it's kind of the reverse, where we see their reaction to what they're seeing, then the reveal of what they're seeing.
Yeah.
That's kind of an opposite thing that they like to do, that I've noticed when we've watched probably like 7 or 8 Japanese horror movies now in the last like week or two.
Yeah.
And I've noticed that is part of their style, that they like to show the reaction, and then what we're supposed to be, you know, what they're it's like they're prepping us in a way, but like not to like downplay the horror, but to elevate it,
right?
Be like, what are they looking at, looking at, oh shit, and like getting your mind like starting to fill in, because that's the scary thing about horror, right? Obviously, is like the imagination.
Yeah.
And you're like, your imagination starts running wild. And typically when you're doing the setup, right, in American horror, it's like the looming dread of like that thing's going to pop up at any moment. But this is where like somebody finds something and you see their face and they're like,
yeah.
And you're like, what is it? What is it? What is it? What is it?
I really like that, actually. I think that that's a very effective way, like you said, to like build the suspense for whatever the scare is going to be, to see the character's reaction.
Yeah.
So I really enjoy that for sure. And I've definitely always been a fan of J-horror, obviously, because I really love like Japanese culture in general. But you know, it is different than like American horror movies, and I think that you just have to like learn to appreciate it. But of course, it's just like anything, like you were saying, if you're not into, you know, that style, then you don't have to force yourself to watch it or anything. But also within that, there are plenty of like Japanese movies, which I think you'll agree with, that we've watched, that are not like The Grudge, or like a cookie cutter version of like what you might think of as J-horror. I think that there's definitely elements throughout, but we watched a couple like recently that I think kind of broke away from that stereotypical, you know, style that you're talking about. So, and I think this is actually kind of one of them. Honestly, I was super into this movie.
Yeah.
It's definitely has become like one of my favorites that we've, in like Japanese horror and horror in general, that we've watched. I think it's so good. I thought it was so atmospheric and so creepy, and it has a super memorable doll that was really messing with me. I found it to be like absolutely terrifying.
Yeah, it's definitely the most memorable thing from this film. And we had discussed and even went through the list of contenders that we could come up with for, is this the scariest doll we've seen in a movie? And it's definitely got a good case for it. I think it's definitely one of the most effective and creepy dolls I've seen. I called it the Anya Taylor-Joy doll, which is funny,
when you first saw it.
I think she's like one of the most beautiful women on earth. But like,
the doll has very
she does
wide
have those
set
wide set eyes. Like,
eyes.
oh yeah, so I was just playing, joking about her eyes. But yeah, she, like, the doll in this is very unsettling. Just when it's not even doing anything, but then when it actually does stuff, then it's even more unsettling. So I like that there's a buildup. And the thing that and what's interesting is, with Japanese horror, you would think I would enjoy it more, because the thing that I love in horror more than anything is atmosphere, right? And Japanese horror is all about atmosphere. It's all about building slow tension, and you know, building to some kind of climatic moment, you know, paced through just dread.
Yeah.
So honestly, I'm not. I'm kind of surprised that I haven't liked it more in the past.
Mm.
But having watched so much of it of recent, I feel like we're more reviewing the subgenre
I know we're
of
talking very
Japanese and
broadly.
not specifically talking about this film. So I'm gonna have to label this film this title appropriately when we post it, because people are gonna be like, "You never talk about the movie." Let's talk about the movie.
Yes. So the movie is about a director and an actress that are making a movie based on a series of murders that happened at a hotel.
Yes.
And they are just making a movie literally based on that.
Yeah. That's
That's the synopsis of it, and without getting into spoilers, pretty much.
Um, as you can probably guess, I shouldn't say you could guess because it is Japanese, but I have noticed in our watching, and this shouldn't be of any surprise because we all influence each other, but I don't know why I would think that Japanese people wouldn't be inspired by American cinema,
Hmm.
because they would, just like we're inspired by Japanese cinema and so on, back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but this movie clearly has a lot of homage and connections to The Shining, um,
Mm.
which makes sense. I
Yeah.
mean, and I've noticed that actually in a few Japanese horror movies we've watched lately, that The Shining seems to be
Yeah.
the movie that is represented the most in like homages and connections that I've seen.
I would be really curious to see like interview, like how people do like street interviews or whatever,
Yeah.
or just like some
What are your
type of
favorite?
data about like, yeah, well, what Western horror movies are most popular in Japan, like classic Western horror movies.
It would make sense that they were ghost related, because
Yes.
Japanese
Yeah.
people seem to be really obsessed with the supernatural in their
Yeah.
horror
That's,
movies.
I mean, like, obviously I'm no expert. I'm not like a, what is it, a Japanologist?
Hmm.
Japanologist? How do you say that?
What are you asking
Somebody
me
who
for?
studies Japanese culture, but I have a big interest in it. But like their like native religion, aside from like a lot of people think of Buddhism, but it's something called Shinto, which is very like similar to like maybe a Native American belief system where like everything has like spirits attached to it, and it's a lot more. It's like an animistic religion.
Hmm.
So there is a lot more focus on like spirits in Japanese culture, and definitely, yeah, ghosts and stuff seem to be a common trend in horror. Not that we don't have ghosts in like Western movies, but we have a
Yeah, but
there's a lot of other stuff too.
Japanese horror is primarily like ghosts that I've noticed.
Yeah,
Maybe that's just what we're watching. I'm
maybe.
sure that
I'm
there's
sure we'll come to some
tons and
others.
tons of
Yeah,
other types, but for the most part, if you really look at the most popular of Japanese horror,
yeah.
they're almost all ghost movies,
Well,
like
even a
The
lot of,
Grudge and
yeah,
The Ring and One Missed Call
sure.
and Shutter
Uh
and
huh. Pulse.
Pulse and
Yeah, a
yeah,
lot
no,
of,
it's
I was gonna say a lot of anime. It's the same thing. There's a lot of like supernatural elements to anime, even in non-horror anime.
yeah,
So that is definitely a common thing, which I am totally fine with because I love ghosts and ghost stories and like that realm of horror.
yeah. No,
So
I do
yeah.
too. I do too. Um, so the film is definitely, and this is from the director of The Grudge.
Hmm.
And we just watched another movie about 10 minutes ago, from this director as well, Marabito.
Merebito.
Marabito.
Yeah.
Um, and this, I don't know, it's been a while since I've seen the original Ju-on.
Hmm.
Um, we watched the Origins
Mm-hmm.
show on Netflix, which we quite liked, maybe about a year ago or less. But with this one, I would say that this is his best film that I've watched. I think this one is insanely creepy and effective, and one of the best Japanese horror films I've watched for sure. I was kind of blown away by this one,
Mm-hmm.
because I don't. Whenever I hear the After Dark Horror Fest movies brought up, there's like a lot of attention on something like Frontiers, Dark Ride sometimes gets some attention. Lake Mungo, of course, is probably maybe the most revered of the After Dark movies. I don't know many people who don't love that movie. Some people find it boring, which I totally get, but I don't. I love it. But yeah, I don't feel like Reincarnation is one of the ones that gets attention in this, and I honestly think it might be the best movie they ever made. Like
it's
it's really, really
fantastic.
good.
It's really good. It's got a super unique. I mean, I I really there's a twist that happens,
Mm-hmm.
which I really enjoyed. I think that it's very creative, and as we've been saying, I think like the atmosphere building alone.
Yeah.
There's also a really nice, dreamlike, nightmarish kind of Silent Hill
Yeah.
vibe,
Yeah.
which is really cool. Um, and yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of imagery too that is really creepy. Like aside from the doll, which is definitely like our favorite part as far as imagery goes, but even like without that, there's other moments in the film that really kind of stick with you and
Mm-hmm.
are unsettling and scary.
And the whole film feels like a dream,
Yes.
and which I'm always been a big fan of. And with all Japanese horror that we've watched, I don't think I don't know if there's one yet we've watched just in the last couple of weeks, but in general, where it's like just super clear cut.
Mm-hmm.
I don't I don't know if that even exists in Japanese
Mm-hmm.
filmmaking, because these movies always leave a good amount to question.
There's a lot of ambiguity
Yes,
for sure.
which I'm a huge fan of, as
Yes.
long as it's
Yeah.
not confusing for confusing's sake and
No.
just being pretentious and being like, well, we're just going to pretend like our film is intelligent, but we don't really have anything to say. That kind of stuff frustrates me.
Yeah.
And that's not how these feel. These feel like
No.
they have answers,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't even think the filmmakers know what the answers are.
Yeah, they kind of feel like they're made from like a subconscious place,
Yeah.
which is again like that dream quality. But they aren't, I wouldn't say any of the ones that we're going to review or that we've seen recently are so confusing that it's a bad thing. I think that there's a good amount of ambiguity, but it's beneficial.
There's some that are much more confusing than others.
Mm.
Cure being probably the most confusing
Mhm.
of them. But yeah, none of them are clear cut, and none of them are completely indecipherable like drivel,
Mhm.
because that kind of stuff is not fun to watch either. Cure was getting close for me, because
Oh, not for me.
I literally had no idea what was going on. Like I knew what was going on, but I had no idea what was actually going on.
We'll get there in our
Yeah.
review, but
So, but yeah, I think this is an insanely effective. Don't
yes.
worry, the next one we're going to be actually like on point with the film itself, not just talking about Japanese stuff. But I want to kind of announce that
Yeah,
we're watching a bunch of Japanese horror right now, and this is the video that kind of takes that hit of us not talking about the
first
movie as
one.
much
Yeah.
as we should have. But yeah, we didn't talk spoilers on this one,
No.
so you need to go watch it.
Yes, you should watch it
If you're into
for
Japanese
sure.
horror and you haven't seen it, I definitely think it's one you're missing out on,
Yeah.
and you need to rectify that immediately.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, there's nothing really more to say on it than that. So we'll just leave it at that. So, anything more?
No, I think that's good. Just watch it.
We got a Japanese sign out.
じゃあまたまたね
Jamata
またね See you later.
matane
またね
matane. Okay,
Bye.
matane.
Bye bye.
Bye.